They had my car towed at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday, without even bothering to ask what was hidden under the cover. I came home from a business trip and found the tow truck already hooking up what they thought was just some piece of junk cluttering the driveway. The HOA president stood there with her arms folded tight, that smug little smile fixed on her face like she'd finally gotten rid of the neighborhood's biggest problem. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and blinds, watching the whole scene like it was the best drama they'd seen all year. I walked up the driveway, gravel crunching under my shoes, breathing in the sharp mix of diesel exhaust, freshly cut grass, and the thick cloud of their own self-righteousness. They had no idea what they were touching. They were wrong about the car, wrong about me, and completely wrong about who actually controlled this place. My name is Marcus. I'm 48. 6 months earlier, I'd walked out of the ugliest divorce imaginable. 20 years gone, ex-wife took the big house, half my retirement, and most of my kids' attention. I was starting over, looking for something smaller, something that didn't feel like a shrine to everything I'd lost. That's how I ended up in Willowbrook Estates. 847 homes, prices between $800,000 and $2.3 million, the kind of neighborhood where every car is German. Every lawn looks manicured by professionals, and the air always smells faintly of mulch and money. What really sold me on the place was the 3-car garage. I needed space to protect something special. My Uncle Raymond had passed away the year before and left me his most prized possession, a 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB. Uncle Raymond was brilliant, secretive, always said the same thing. Marcus, real value hides in plain sight. People only see what they expect to see. The car looked rough on the outside, faded paint, worn leather, but underneath it was numbers matching, fully documented museum grade. I kept it under a plain gray tarp while I researched restores. Nothing flashy, just protection from dust. That's when I met Diane Blackwell. She was everything you picture when you think HOA president. Late 50s, spotless BMW X7, athleisure she never actually sweats in, smile sharp enough to slice through small talk. Married to Craig, who sold pharmaceuticals. 2 kids in private school, because public ones apparently weren't good enough anymore. She'd held the HOA presidency for 3 straight terms. In my experience, people who grip tiny bits of power that hard usually can't handle anything bigger. 3 days after I moved and she knocked on my door with that practiced, friendly smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Just curious about the vehicle situation in your driveway." I told her it was a classic car, temporarily covered. Her smile tightened. "We have standards here. Have you read the covenants?" She handed me an unofficial violation notice printed on thin paper that felt like it was meant to irritate. That night, I sat down and read every single page of those HOA documents. There was no specific rule banning covered vehicles for less than 30 days. She was bluffing, testing whether I'd fold like everyone else she'd targeted. She wasn't finished. That same night, she started a group text. "New resident thinks rules don't apply." Within days, the neighborhood gave me the full suburban freeze-out. Conversation stopped when I walked by. People turned away at the mailbox. I realized quickly this wasn't really about the car. It was about Diane marking her territory and punishing the newcomer who didn't bow. What I didn't know yet was that Uncle Raymond hadn't only left me a Ferrari. He'd left me something much larger, something that would flip Diane's entire power game inside out. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. Emergency HOA board meeting, 48 hours notice to discuss community aesthetic concerns. The meeting was at Diane's house. Not neutral ground, not the community center, her kitchen island, her turf. I walked in and immediately smelled vanilla candles so strong it felt like they were trying to mask something sour. Craig answered the door with a beer already in his hand at 7 p.m. Inside, for board members sat behind the counter like judges. One single chair faced them for me. Diane slid a folder across the granite with dramatic flair. Ring camera screenshots, neighbor complaints, a quick Google search about property values. This is affecting home values. Children are asking uncomfortable questions. We have standards. I listened to the performance, then reached into my own briefcase and laid out every relevant page of the covenants, highlighted, annotated, tabbed. Show me the exact violation. Silence. Board members shifted uncomfortably. One of them finally muttered, maybe they should table it for legal review. Diane's face turned 5 different shades of red. She gritted out, tabled pending further investigation. I left thinking I'd won a small round. The next morning, there were 3 neat piles of dog waste on my lawn and an anonymous note in the mailbox. Trashy car for trashy people. That was new. In 18 months, no one had ever seen dog waste incidents in this dog-friendly neighborhood. Then I overheard Diane pitching a house 2 streets over. Lovely neighborhood, except for some unfortunate new additions affecting the aesthetic. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about rules. It was about business. Diane had been quietly profiting off turnover, pushing out people who didn't fit her vision, then collecting commissions when the houses sold again. My refusal to roll over was threatening her side hustle. So I did the logical thing. I installed a full security system, cameras on every corner, motion alerts, cloud backups. I had a feeling her next move would be worth capturing. That same night, I went through Uncle Raymond's old files more carefully. Buried in a folder labeled Willowbrook Development, 1987, was the truth that changed everything. My uncle hadn't just bought a Ferrari in 1967. He'd quietly built something far bigger. Meridian Holdings, LLC, formed in Delaware in 1985. Primary asset, 847 acres of farmland purchased in 1987 for $340,000. Development partner, Willowbrook Construction Group. Total project cost, $78 million. Uncle Raymond's stake, 67%. Every single homeowner in Willowbrook Estates, including Diane, was technically my tenant. The houses were theirs, but the land underneath was leased on 47-year ground leases. Every HOA fee included a ground lease payment that flowed straight to Meridian Holdings, straight to me. For 18 months, I'd been receiving $127,000 a month in automatic deposits into an account I'd never bothered checking. Total balance, $2. $3 million, quietly earning interest. Diane hadn't just been harassing a neighbor. She'd been harassing her own landlord, while quietly embezzling from his company. I could have ended it that second with a single phone call. One notice and Diane's lease could be terminated, forcing her house into a fire sale situation. But tucked behind the corporate documents was a short handwritten note from Uncle Raymond. Some people respect power. Others respect justice. Use wisely. So I didn't go for instant revenge. I decided to let her keep digging her own hole until the moment came to pull the cover off everything. The next escalation came at dawn. Diesel engine growl woke me up. Through the window, I watched Diane directing a tow truck in my driveway like she was commanding an army. Craig filmed the whole thing on his phone. The operator started toward my covered car. I slipped on a bathrobe, grabbed my coffee, and walked outside calm as if I was just checking the weather. The tow driver paused when he saw me. "Sir, I have authorization from the HOA." I asked to see the paperwork. It was a flimsy, generic work order signed by Diane, claiming abandoned vehicle safety hazard. Diane stepped forward, clipboard raised. Finally enforcing community standards. Daily fines are at $350 now, plus towing fees. You should have listened. Neighbors started drifting out, garage doors lifting, kids rubbing sleep from their eyes, phones already recording. I took a slow sip of coffee and said, "Before you tow anything, maybe you should see what you're actually removing." I walked over and rested my hand on the corner of the tarp. The crowd grew tighter. A little girl asked, "What's under there?" I smiled and said, "Let's find out together." One smooth pull, and the tarp slid away. Morning sun caught the freshly restored Rosso Corsa paint, chrome wire wheels flashing. The low collective gasp rolled through the street. The tow driver let out a long whistle. "That's a real Ferrari." Diane's face went from triumph to confusion to something close to horror. Craig's phone slowly dropped to his side. I pulled out the appraisal paperwork. Restoration estimate, around $2.1 million. The tow driver immediately backed off. "I'm not touching a $2 million car, lady. You didn't say it was a classic Ferrari." Diane tried to recover. "Doesn't matter what it's worth. Rules apply to everyone." But the energy had already shifted. Neighbors who'd frozen me out for months suddenly looked embarrassed. Kids asked if they could touch it. Someone laughed nervously. The tide had turned completely. Then I dropped the second bomb. Diane, there's something else you should know. You've been trying to tow your landlord's car. I held up my phone. I own the land your house sits on. Every HOA payment you collect includes ground lease rent to my company, Meridian Holdings. You've been harassing your own landlord while stealing from my business. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The crowd started whispering, pulling out phones, searching names. Diane's world cracked open right there in the driveway. That was only the beginning. The real reckoning was still coming, and when it hit, it would leave nothing of her little empire standing.